Srimad Bhagavad Gita as it is, chapter 18, text 22, translation and commentary by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. Prabhupada. Yattu kritsnavad ekasmin karye saktam ahaitukam atat vartavad alpamcha tat tamasam udahritam. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all-in-all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. Purport. The, quote, knowledge, unquote, in other words, so-called knowledge, the knowledge of the common man, is always in the mode of darkness or ignorance, because every living entity in conditional life is born into the mode of ignorance. One who does not develop knowledge through the authorities or scriptural injunctions has knowledge that is limited to the body. He is not concerned about acting in terms of the directions of scripture. For him, God is money, and knowledge means the satisfaction of bodily demands. Such knowledge has no connection with the absolute truth. It is more or less like the knowledge of the ordinary animals, the knowledge of eating, sleeping, defending, and mating. Such knowledge is described here as the product of the mode of darkness. In other words, knowledge concerning the spirit soul beyond this body is called knowledge in the mode of goodness. Knowledge producing many theories and doctrines by dint of mundane logic and mental speculation is the product of the mode of passion, and knowledge concerned only with keeping the body comfortable is said to be in the mode of darkness. Yattu kritsnavad ekasmin karye saktamahaitukam atat varta vadalpamcha tattamasamudahritam. And that knowledge by which one is attached to one kind of work as the all-in-all, without knowledge of the truth, and which is very meager, is said to be in the mode of darkness. The subject of this verse, spoken by Lord Krishna to his dear devotee Arjuna, is knowledge. And of course, the whole of Bhagavad Gita is concerned with knowledge. We find at the end of each chapter of Bhagavad Gita there's a inserted, I believe by Shankaracharya or one of his followers, the conclusion, Iti Srimad Bhagavad Gita Upanishadsu Brahma Vidyayam. This is Brahma Vidya, knowledge of transcendence. In this series of verses, in the final chapter of the Gita, Sri Krishna speaks about knowledge within the three modes of material nature. Srila Prabhupada, in his purport, has put the word knowledge within quotation marks, which indicates that it is called knowledge and considered to be knowledge, but it's not really knowledge at all. The knowledge of the common man is always in the mode of darkness, in the mode of ignorance, because every living entity in conditional life is born into the mode of ignorance. There are three modes of material nature, but the basic condition of material life is that of ignorance. We don't know who we are, what we're supposed to be doing, how we got here, where we're going. What a terrible situation. And in this situation of total ignorance, we try to find some knowledge. The human is distinguished from the animal by purportedly higher intelligence. The animal also has some knowledge, in one sense. We receive knowledge through what are called the Gyan Indriyas, or the senses for acquiring knowledge. These senses are by touching, tasting, smelling, feeling, and hearing, through the various senses, through the sense of touch, the skin, through the tongue, through the eyes, through the nose, by the ears. We acquire information. And the animals also do. The animals also have some knowledge. But humans are considered superior to animals because they can not only receive knowledge, even though the ability to receive knowledge through the senses of some animals is more than that of humans. That's why we have, for instance, a dog whistle. You blow the whistle and the human can't hear it. It's at a high pitch, but the dog can hear it and the dog comes running. You know that dog whistle? The bats, they navigate by radar. They have a built-in radar, so we're told. So they have abilities to acquire sensory knowledge in some ways more than humans can. But humans are considered superior because they have a more developed intelligence. More developed intelligence means they have the ability to process that information in such a way that they can produce sophisticated manipulation of nature and various theories about the what's, whys, hows and wherefores of life in this world. However, the overall situation of this world is one of ignorance because we don't know who we are. We think that we are the body, and therefore in the mode of ignorance, or the overall situation of ignorance, what we call knowledge is limited to activities which are, although sophisticated, not higher than those of the animals, inasmuch as we are interested in eating, sleeping, mating and defending. Sense gratification, survival and of the body, and over and above that, sense gratification. So despite having such a developed civilization, it's actually animalistic, and that's quite apparent here in Zadar. The main income of which is Shudras come from all over Europe and lie on the beach and enjoy the body, swim in the sea. It's only for the body. As Suhotra Swami used to say, converting themselves into stool pakoras, brown on the outside and stool on the inside. So, traditionally, the ancient Zadar, what was this, a fishing village previously? Trading. It was a trading port. Bit higher than a fishing port is a trading port. So people who are not interested in understanding what is beyond bodily sense gratification, they are in the mode of ignorance. As Srila Prabhupada comments here that persons in the mode of passion, they're the ones who have they develop various theories, philosophies, but it doesn't get out of the ambit, the sphere of ignorance. As long as we don't take knowledge from above of who we are spirit soul, we are not the body, we are eternal living beings. So in this way we can understand that the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita, it surpasses all the knowledge of all the universities all over the world, which are simply based on speculation. It begins with the knowledge, even the very advanced knowledge of science, in some ways we can call that very advanced. Well, undoubtedly it's very developed, some areas of it. But it begins with knowledge acquired by the senses, and then speculation based on that. And yeah, it may become quite advanced or developed, but it doesn't come to the right point, because simply by agitating the intelligence, one cannot understand that we are not the body, we are not the mind, we are spirit soul. And even some of the philosophers, they come to the firm conclusion that there is no such a thing as a soul. We are only the body. We are only a chemical combination. There is no soul and there is no God. So in this way, people are in ignorance, and in fact, much of what is propagated as knowledge is keeping people in ignorance, because what people consider to be knowledge is knowledge of how to produce motor cars, and knowledge of how to live in this world. But this simply perpetuates our ignorance. In one sense it's knowledge, but in comparison to that knowledge by which we become actually enlightened as to our actual situation and get free from the suffering of repeated birth and death, it's not really knowledge, it's misleading. It's like this, Karl Marx famously said that religion is the opium of the people. Inherent in this statement is the idea that the mass of people are in a state of consciousness, an unnatural state of consciousness, in which they can't think clearly or understand clearly or recognize anything clearly, and which they can be easily manipulated. And suggested there is also that it's deliberately done. There's some deliberate plan to keep people subdued. So the idea is that religion is something that is used by certain exploitive people to keep the masses in fear and illusion, so that they can be manipulated for the benefit of a few. So Marx's idea was that people should understand his ideas of atheism and communism, and the people will rise up and throw off the yoke of religion, and in this way they can cooperatively act for their real self-interest. But Marx was another person in ignorance, because he didn't know what people's real self-interest is. He thought that their real self-interest is to stop thinking about some future life in which they can be happy, which they're told about in religion, and live this life in which they can be happy, because according to Marx, this life is all there is anyway, so I might as well live it happily. But then if we just think a little philosophically, why bother? If this life is all in all, then why bother about anything? Because we're just here for an extremely short time in eternity. We're just on one extremely small planet. We're totally insignificant. If we are, according to atheistic theory, just a bundle of chemicals, then why bother about anything? What does it matter whether these chemicals are so-called happy or so-called sad? And it's just a blip in time. Anyway, what does it matter whether you kill someone? Why should anyone get upset? It's just one group of chemicals changed its shape, or or stop functioning. So what? What does it matter? So, this was Marx's theory. Religion is the opiate of the people, which may have been true, because religion can be misused to mislead people. It doesn't necessarily mean that the religion, that if something is used to mislead people, then it is all completely wrong. Marx believed that his communistic theories were right, but they were used to manipulate people just in a different way than they'd been manipulated via religion previously. But there's this idea that there's mass misleading of the people. That was Marx's idea by religion. But actually, it's Maya that misleads. Yaya samohito jiva. Maya is that which misleads people into thinking something is real when it's not real. Maya means that which is not. People think that something is knowledge when it's not. They think that life in this world is very important when it's not. They think that they're the body, and they're not. They think that everything in relation to this body is important. Ato griha kshetra sutapta vitayar janasya mohoya mahammameti. Thinking in terms of this body, they think that my home, my family, my money, my property, my relatives, my country, this is all very important. But this is thinking in terms of I, me, and mine. And it's just ignorance. Now we think in terms of I, me, and mine, in terms of our present situation, and later we may get another body, maybe as an ant, and then we'll defend our ant colony against the attacks of maybe some other ant colony, or the being firmly convinced that I am an ant. Just like firmly convinced means not even logically thinking about it. People don't think, if we tell them you're not the body, you're not Croatian, people can't even begin to understand how that could be true, because never in their life, in this life, this one short life, did they ever question or that they were not the body or they're not Croatian, because it's just something that they accept to be a fact, just like the sky is blue in the summer, or the sea is blue. They just accept it. Rain comes from the sky. We don't expect rain to... You never heard of rain coming up from the earth. You just can't imagine it. It just comes from the sky. So people just take it as an accepted fact of existence that, well, I'm me, and this is me, and I'm Croatian, or whatever bodily concept or bodily condition one may have been born into. And it seems to be true. It seems to be so true that we don't even think about it, but we should think about it. That before this body existed, I existed. After this body dies, which it certainly will do, although that's another feature of Maya. We don't take it very seriously that we have to die. I will continue to exist. So I'm not the body. I'm not a bag of chemicals. I'm more than that. So everyone in the world is under this spell of Maya, taking it as a fact, taking it as knowledge that I am the body. So this is the real opiate of the people. The bodily concept of life, thinking that I am the body. And this manifests in various forms. If we talk about religion being the opiate of the people, that means a worldview or a philosophy by which people are misled. That can certainly be true. If religion is utilized to keep people in fear and submission, and religion is often a cause of instilling hatred in others. It's supposed to be for instilling love in others, but it's often a cause of instilling hatred. It's often identified with a national interest, and then that is used against others' national interest, just like here in this part of the world, within living memory of most of you present here, the Croatian national identity was identified with Catholicism, and the Serbian national identity with Orthodox, both in the name of Christ and killing each other. There was fighting in Zadar also, I believe. Yeah. So in this, I often think that Christ, if he had known what they were going to do in his name, he might have just been a carpenter and just not bothered preaching, because how they misused what he did. Just hammer a few nails and make some chairs and tables, and life would have been better. So religion is used as our sense of identity, that we, that often goes hand in hand with. There's another opiate of the people: patriotism. In the name of our country, people will go out and fight and die and sacrifice, and they're glorified and called a hero. But the people who are heading up their country, they never go out and fight and die and sacrifice and get called a hero. They let other people do that while they're building up their fortunes on the strength of others sacrificing their lives for the sake of what? So this sense of patriotism, people can be manipulated, and often to do very horrible things in the name of patriotism. But what does it mean when we say, my Croatia? They fought for their independence and then they just gave it away to the European Union. So, one generation later. But what does it mean anyway, my country? It's an expansion of the illusion that I am this body. But it's a very powerful illusion. People feel very strongly. Then this morning in the class, Manida Prabhu told us, in the course of giving an example, he told us about how even though they left Lika ahead of us, they got there later than us, because Divya Prabandha, who was driving us, had the good sense to take a detour because he knew there was a traffic jam up ahead. So the traffic jam was because of a football game. And from Manida Prabhu's description, it seems there was a Croatian national match. Was there, do you know? Some national football match. Yeah, he described like that, in which they're all there and in this mood, cheering on their country, but it's meaningless. What does it mean, my country? And then the borders may change, and definitely the people will change. Often in India, I say that people who are so much nationalistic, Jai Hind, anti-Pakistan, they may be fighting against the Pakistani soldiers and they die thinking, I hate these Pakistanis. And the next life, because he's thinking of Pakistan at the time of death, he gets born in Pakistan and thinks, Pakistan Zindabad. Hate the Indians. So what's the meaning of it? It's another kind of, it's another kind of illusion by which people are manipulated. The whole idea of national identity, that's fairly recent in human history. Otherwise, there were small, what we might call nation states, that's all. And many of these kind of like Saudi Arabia, there was no Saudi Arabia, there was no Iraq or any such thing. The borders were drawn because some during the 19th century, as the Western colonialists went all over the world, they decided that everywhere should be demarcated. Otherwise, between Saudi Arabia and, for instance, Bahrain, there was no border. There's no need of any border. It's just a bunch of sand anyway. Who cares? With nomads wandering here and there. And why do you have to have a line which says where the border is? But now they'll fight over that. Well, not particularly that one, but they'll be fighting over the different borders. Even though they make countries, like in Africa, they make countries, but the ancient tribal identity is there, so the tribal people, they don't care for these borders, and they take their sheep over the border and this and that, and it's just for them, it's the country their ancestors have lived in for generations. So I've seen this in India, how they've developed the sense of nationalism, which wasn't very strongly there previously, because after all, India as a nation was formed, in the modern form, was formed by the British, and there wasn't this very strong sense of Indian patriotism. It just wasn't there. But maybe only 20, 25 years ago they started promoting the Indian flag, and you'll find everywhere fences and houses painted in green, white and orange, which are the countries of the Indian national flag, and you can buy cricket bats for your kid to play with, and the cricket bat is painted green, white and orange, and there's this whole sense that India is the upcoming superpower they used to talk about. I think they stopped talking about that now, and when they realized that, well, maybe not so super after all. But this sense of Indian patriotism, and recently I was in America, and I saw in Florida a billboard saying that 1/3 of American children are undernourished, and it was asking for money for some charity. So I thought that previously in America they might have some sign saying that 1/3 of the children somewhere else are undernourished, give money, but now it's right there in America. So I said in a lecture that shortly after that it's a great shame for this nation that's supposed to be the wealthiest nation in the world, that they can spend billions and maybe trillions of dollars to go to other countries and bomb them, but at home their own children are not properly fed. And then I got some feedback later that some members of the audience were upset by this. They thought it was an anti-American feeling. Why are you criticizing America? This very strong sense of, you can't criticize our country, even though they're supposed to be devotees. And I've seen actually, when Saddam Hussein, whose name you might remember because he was painted as the greatest demon at the time by America because they wanted to kill him, when he sent Iraqi forces into Kuwait, that was just before around the time of the GBC meetings in Mayapur. And when I came into Mayapur, the GBC meetings were going on, and I saw one of our GBC members from America saying, "We smashed them," meaning that the Americans went into Kuwait and kicked the Iraqis out. We? Who? We? What is this we? Identifying with America. It's actually when the nation is very powerful, then the tendency to identify with it is very strong, I would think. Maybe it may not be so strong in Croatia. Srila Prabhupada said that the British are the most puffed up people in the world, because they previously had an empire. One devotee in America told me also, referring to my Britishness, He said, the British, they always have this sense of being superior to the Americans, I guess, he thought. So, there's this sense of national, And that's a fact. The British always think, these Americans, they're just a bunch of rebels, but we're the really cultured people. We know how to say please and thank you as we're passing, serving the roast beef, and they're very high-class people. And the French, they also think, somehow the fate went wrong, the British conquered the world. But actually we French, we're the really cultured and sophisticated people. Our language is much more sophisticated than English, which is all full of this grunting Anglo-Saxon sounds, but French is very high class. So everyone thinks they're the best. Janani janma bhumischa swargameva gariyasi. Even in Sanskrit it said that one's mother and one's motherland, they are more glorious even than heaven. That thought is there. So this is cultivated, patriotism. In the name of patriotism, so many atrocities are performed. People are willing to march into battle and die. But it's just a great illusion. It's ato griha kshetra. It's thinking, this is my land. What does it mean? In the Bhumi Gita, the section of the Bhagavatam, 12th canto, it's described that Bhumi Devi, the goddess of the earth, she describes all these foolish kings. They all came and they marched against each other, and they beat one another, and then they thought, now I own this section of the earth. But she said, I never belonged to any of them. They all came and went, and they thought, this is my land. But I never belonged to them. The earth doesn't belong to them. For a short time, they may have, within a certain area, the power to punish and reward people within that area, and therefore they think, this is my land because I'm in control here. But actually everyone's under the control of time. So patriotism is another illusory, opiate-like manifestation of the mode of ignorance. In the 1980s, there was what was called the Falkland Islands War. It wasn't really a war, it only lasted, I think, about 2 weeks, something like that, in which the Argentine forces, who have long claimed what are called the Falkland Islands, some islands, something like 200 kilometers or something off their coast, to be the property of Argentina. But it's the total population, human population, there's about 2,000 or less, and mostly from, all from British stock, Scottish mostly, I think, sheep farmers, and just a few rocks sticking out of the ocean, which you can't do much with, graze a few sheep on. So the Argentine forces went in and occupied it, and the British sent their navy, and in about 2 weeks they'd kicked out the Argentinians. So that war was going on for a few days. At the time, must have been the early 1980s. At the time I was residing at the ISKCON temple in Calcutta, and there was also an Argentinian devotee residing there. By the grace of the Argentinian government, all the devotees in Argentina had been kicked out of Argentina. So many of them were in India. And after a few days of the war, I said to that devotee, hey, look, we're supposed to be enemies. It never crossed our minds, either of us, that we should have any bad feeling toward each other because our so-called countries are at war. Although I heard recently in Russia that in Ukraine, devotees from East Ukraine and West Ukraine they've become divided because their countries have become divided, which is nonsense. Because these demon so-called leaders are fighting and dividing the country, why should our devotees, who are supposed to have higher knowledge, subscribe to this patriotism? But It's a manipulation of the mass media by which people believe whatever they're told, and people believe, they might actually believe that the American forces are going here and there for the benefit, for upholding peace in the world. Again, in America recently, I was surprised at hearing I heard several devotees talking about Putin and Russia, and they're so bad. And it's all just coming from the mass media, because it comes on the TV and the internet and the newspapers that Putin and Russia are bad. Therefore, the devotees are supposed to be more intelligent, think that they're very bad, but it's quite clearly mass media manipulation so that the people will agree, as America sends its forces into various places to uphold humanitarianism and all this and that. Spending again huge amounts of money while there are beggars in their streets. But clearly the geopolitical interests of the American nation are not inspired simply by some idealistic humanitarianism. For instance, they're very interested to oust the dictator Saddam Hussein in Iraq and install democracy, but they never complained about the non-democracy in Saudi Arabia. Now, this may sound like a lot of talk of politics and anti-Americanism, but I'm just using it as some examples of how people take to be knowledge that which is illusion. And people are, this Marx said religion is the opiate of the people, with the idea that people are manipulated by being given some wrong information by people who, by giving them this so-called knowledge, want to mislead them and manipulate them. But the same thing is going on in the name of patriotism and so many things. So many mass media, or the advertisement, in the advertisements, all wrong information is given. And so that many people, just like the FDA, Food and Drug Administration, in America, they're supposed to ensure that the food that you eat is healthy, but it's known that they don't properly apply the standards they're supposed to in the slaughterhouses, so that the animals and the meat packing industry is very laxly supervised, so that there may be more germs in the meat than they're supposed to be. And that the big companies, they can sell you food which is not actually healthy. And drugs, the pharmaceutical industry, huge industry, they give you drugs which the long-term effect is not actually known, and they're against natural medicine. They say that they'll never give a certificate to natural medicines which have been used for generations. So in this way, there are certain vested interests. It's not just religion, vested interests which are manipulating the way people think. And because people are in the mode of ignorance, they're very easily manipulated. What's the opiate of the people? Sense gratification. The idea that you can, money, Srila Prabhupada writes here, for God is money for the person who is in the mode of ignorance. People are not interested in knowledge through scriptural authorities. The whole idea that's if you get money, then you can be happy and you can enjoy. Sense gratification will make you happy. People go to Las Vegas to spend lots of money on gambling and intoxicate. Las Vegas is dedicated famously to gambling, but it's also a place of prostitution and intoxication, and of course meat eating goes without saying. And the idea is that you go to Las Vegas to be happy, but no one's happy. So in this way, the whole modern society is just based on giving people a completely wrong idea of how they can be happy, even materially. I mean, even if we accept that it can be possible at some level to be happy materially in this world, what is that happiness? Well, if one has a settled family life, one can live peacefully with his neighbors, one can leave the house with the doors open with no fear of any theft, basic health, security. But who has all these things nowadays? The husband can't trust the wife, the parents can't trust the children can't trust the parents. You may have some job or means of income, but it's very unsure. In a big city like London, just to walk out on the street is a risk, because you can be attacked at any time for no reason, or just someone might attack you because they're intoxicated, or they might attack you just for fun, or to take the whatever little cash you have on you. So where's the happiness in such a society? Because it's based on ignorance of the actual purpose of life, and it's based on ignorance of even how to be happy materially. Happiness, material happiness, if we are told to speak of such a thing, is more on the platform of satisfaction than of great sense gratification. People think happiness means when your football team wins the World Cup, your nation wins the World Cup, but then one wins and everyone else is the loser. So one nation is rah, rah, and everyone else is miserable because they lost. And then the next time round, the same nation loses. So then they're miserable also. And in England, people who are old enough can think back to 1966, the one time they won the world, the one time they won anything, I think, their football team. Some time ago, I think it was Divya Prabhanda told me that Croatia had beaten England 5-0 or something. What a disgrace for England to be beaten by a little nation like the English people must have been shamed, because they identify that these 11 people running around, they represent us. Yes, nice happy music. Be happy. Yeah, even the music, it's so horrible. What they call me. Well, I mean, not this one, but some of the music, it sounds like people screaming from hell. Isn't it what they call music nowadays? A lot of it. It's like the screams of people in hell, and they call that music. So, sense gratification, illusion, patriotism, the education system is they give us knowledge, and the idea is that by getting this knowledge, you'll get a better future life. Means you can, after getting a university degree, you can get a better job than someone without a university degree. Maybe. And in the school, all these ideas that man is descended from animals and life is a product of chemicals. So many wrong ideas. So this Krishna conscious movement is meant for giving knowledge, actual knowledge. Only very thoughtful persons can take this, and not many people are very thoughtful, because the whole atmosphere in the world militates against that. The whole atmosphere in the world is one of just work, get money, enjoy yourself. It's a whole cycle. Work all year, come to Zadar in the summer, and then go back and work again. And that's it. And that's the life goes on. And then when you're too old to work, then retire and just rot away, and you can't enjoy sense gratification anymore. And people think, yeah, this is great, this is life. Yeah, I went on a holiday to Croatia. It was great. And then back to work again. What an unhappy, misguided life. What a waste of the human form of life. Such foolishness. We can expect that in Kali Yuga, but Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mission is to give this knowledge by which people can come out of that. It requires that we take this knowledge and apply it in our life. We see even people take to devotional service, but it's all, in many cases, it's mixed up with the idea that we shall enjoy this world, and then you can never really take to devotional service. And increasingly it seems our preaching is like that, to try to give people some kind of sense gratification and call it devotional service. But devotional service is Vairagya Vidya, Nija Bhakti Yogam. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's Bhakti Yoga is based on knowledge. What is that knowledge? That we're not the body. The body is not enjoyable. It's sufferable. Which means that we can tolerate the suffering which is there, but the attempt to enjoy the body is in itself that's an illusion which increases our illusion. So therefore there should be a sense of vairagya, of detachment from this world, understanding that I don't belong here, I have nothing to do with this world. I belong to Krishna. Krishna is all bliss. I'm supposed to be happy, but happiness doesn't come from the interaction of the senses with the sense objects. Happiness comes with the interaction of the Atma, the individual soul, with Paramatma, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So this is knowledge. This knowledge should be propagated. It's difficult to propagate it in a society in which people are deliberately made foolish. Foolish people make others foolish. You lost that one?
I didn't catch one word because of the tractor. What, the scientists?
No, I didn't say scientists. You could say that. There's no harm to say that. People are deliberately kept foolish. Some people they see through this and they're upset at how the media and the 0.1% of the society are manipulating others. But those manipulators, those big demons actually, they're also in Maya, they're also foolish. They're also wasting their human form of life. They're not getting any real benefit out of exploiting others, although they may think they are doing. It's the cheaters and the cheated, but the cheaters are also cheated by Maya. So this mercy movement of Krishna consciousness is meant to give knowledge. Srila Prabhupada wanted this Bhagavad Gita as it is, widely distributed and discussed and understood. Srila Prabhupada himself personally spoke on the topics of Bhagavad Gita most widely in his public preaching, especially. You're not the body. That's the first great illusion. Once we consider we're the body, then we got everything else wrong. Whatever knowledge we have, it's all wrong from that point onward. Whatever we may develop, big universities, big telescopes, big theories, it's all wrong. We got it all wrong. Oh, in one sense you could say it's correct. Just for instance, if we take that quantum theory and relativity theory, that's knowledge, although they don't fit together. They contradict each other. But if you say it's knowledge, but it's knowledge of the non-essential. What we really need, just like if a man is hungry and you give him knowledge, okay, now I'm going to teach you quantum theory. And I don't want quantum theory, I want some food. So we're spiritually hungry. We need Krishna. We need satisfaction of the soul, love of Krishna. But instead we're given, here, take this toy. Holiday in Zadar, fancy car, big bank balance, the sense of belonging to a great nation, all misleading. This is knowledge in the mode of ignorance. We have to give actual knowledge. That is the duty of every devotee, to cultivate this knowledge and to distribute it to others, even though the whole society is full of a great blanket coating of ignorance. Still we have to try to distribute this knowledge. It's very powerful knowledge. Many people, by reading these books, especially Bhagavad Gita as it is, their lives have changed. It should change. If we take the knowledge of Bhagavad Gita as it is, our life should change. We can't remain the same person. So, Hare Krishna. Any question about this?
Has a question which is related to one of your lectures in Lika.
Okay, well first of all, is there any question about what I just said? And then afterwards we'll take other questions. No. Okay.
You said in Lika that there is a need that we have a proper guidance in our life. And what happens with a person who doesn't have enough knowledge to recognize that that person who guides him is not properly guided by authority, by spiritual authority.
Everyone needs guidance. What happens if someone doesn't have enough spiritual knowledge to recognize that the person he's being guided by is misguiding, or is incompetent to guide? Yatha, what is that? Yathandaya, what is that? Andha yathandaya rupaniyamanas. This is stated in Bhagavatam. The blind, just like the blind leading the blind. Well, it is a case of fortune also. We are in ignorance. So, Chaitanya Charitamrita says, Brahmanda Brahmite Kono Bhagyavan Jeev Guru Krishna Prasade Pai Bhakti Lata Bij. A fortunate person gets the seed of devotion from Guru and Krishna. So we may have the good fortune. In ignorance it's very difficult for us to understand. If we're actually very sincere, then we'll find the truth, or rather Krishna, who is the truth, will reveal himself to us. But it is the duty of every human being to seriously try to find what is reality, and to go beyond the superficiality of this world. One who has a keen sense of searching for that which is real and that which is not superficial can, even without specific knowledge, can sense if someone who is purporting to guide them is actually self-interested, exploiting others, and particularly when we get the books of Srila Prabhupada, we can study them and see if those guiding us, their life and their teachings are in line with the life and teachings of Srila Prabhupada. who we accept as a perfectly self-realized person, because he didn't cheat anyone and he gave them the highest knowledge of the highest absolute truth, who is Krishna. But most devotees, it seems, prefer not to think. Thinking is painful. But it becomes more painful if after some time you realize that you've been led into ignorance. And you've been going along in ignorance, and your so-called spiritual progress is actually taking you further and further away from the goal. Because the result of that will be not the bliss of surrender to Krishna, but the distress of having been cheated. So these books are meant to give us knowledge and make us intelligent. To develop our power of discrimination so we can understand what is correct and what is not correct. We don't talk about these things much in our movement, publicly, although privately it may go on. But among the many devotees who are what is called loyal to ISKCON, there's an underlying sense of insecurity that we don't. Well, is my guru going to stay on the path? Is he competent to guide me properly? Because there has been so much deviation and fall down. Like I said, we don't like to talk about these things, but I believe it's on the minds of everyone, just like the wife. Not in every case, but in many cases they may say, okay, but husband's there now, but I wonder after 20 years if it'll still, because we see in so many cases people just change. And the husband may think the same of the wife. It might even be going on without, in many cases it's going on without the knowledge. It's cheating on the partner. So the disciple may think that about the guru also. You won't say it to the guru, but that feeling may be there. So keep your sense of discrimination open. Keep it sharp. And quite frank, here we're getting into controversial waters again, anyway. Quite frankly, some of the things that Srila Prabhupada, he criticized bogus gurus for doing, we find are done by some of our gurus in ISKCON. If we are to be frank, which we're not supposed to, because we're supposed to, I don't know what we're supposed to, but anyway. Yeah.
Just in connection to this, what you've been saying, there are devotees, and also I come to this situation when trying to see realistically what's going on among devotees and in our society, and there is like danger that you're looking too much like criticizing and seeing faults, and this is not good.
Yeah, it brings your consciousness. If we're always looking for the faults, it brings our consciousness down.
And on the other hand, you don't want to be blind.
On the other hand, you don't want to be blind. So where's the balance? Where's the balance? I'm also trying to find that. I mean, if we're to be actually realistic, then we'd probably just give up on ISKCON altogether. There's so many discrepancies. That doesn't mean you have to give up on Krishna consciousness altogether. But then if you go outside ISKCON, you'll find different groups, this and that, and then it's not that they're all, they have their own problems also. So what to do? Find good association wherever you can and hold on to it. And weakness, we can, we don't want to encourage it, but weakness in itself is not a fault, but hypocrisy is. And, in other words, pretending to be something great when you're not. And, but weakness is not condemned, but to make a philosophy of it. That is, just like yesterday in Zagreb, a question came to me after the class that, well, I'm not very strong and I can't follow everything, but I like Krishna and I like the kirtan, and will Krishna be kind to me and this and that. Having made an absolute statement, I'm not strong and I'm not going to be. But Krishna should still be kind to me. But Krishna is kind to you by giving the instruction by which you become strong. Not that, well, I'm not strong, but Krishna has to be kind to me, but on my terms and conditions. This is a cheating idea. The question should be, how can I become strong? Not that I'm going to remain at this level and Krishna should still give me his full mercy. It's a Sahaja idea that we don't make any endeavor to actually become spiritually advanced and free from sense gratification. But anyway, we're going to get Krishna Prem. We already have it. No sacrifice and no endeavor, but maximum benefit. And don't ask any, don't bring in any philosophy to the contrary. These are the dark ages of ISKCON, as I see. There's so many strange, just like you told me that your daughter became, the first time she ever heard about sex change was the Pujari in Zagreb and the ISKCON center. She'd never heard of a woman becoming a man. She never heard of a woman because she could never imagine such a thing, and the first exposure she got to it was the Pujari in ISKCON Zagreb. And you're trying to bring up your child in an idealistic way that Krishna consciousness is the ideal life above all these mad things of the karmi society. So and it wasn't that when I was told this I fainted out of shock. It was just another thing. So yeah. And as the protagonists of everything's more or less okay in ISKCON will say, that, well, there are many good things going on. That's true, but there are enough bad things also, or wrong things, that we can understand that this is not what Srila Prabhupada wanted. But I don't want to say anything more about it now. I've said it. Anyway, we all know there's not that much use in discussing it on and on and on. What can we do? At least in our own lives, like I say, if we can keep good association, chant Hare Krishna, and do the best we can in this big mess. What can we do? We can't change the world. We can't change others' lives. We can't We can't just by saying, this is wrong. We can't, it's not that everyone's going to say, okay, all right, now we're going to do everything right. So at least we can keep ourselves as strong as we can in these difficult times. And here's back to, what's your name? Dado, is it? Yeah, now you're going to dedicate your life for the service of Krishna. Yes, please do so. I encourage you to do so. And I've recommended that you go to a place where I know that you will get good association and guidance. It's not that everywhere is completely off. So we still recommend, yes, give your life to Krishna. That the society that is meant for Krishna consciousness is in many ways deviating from the ideal. Does not mean that we cannot pursue pure devotional service, or that we should be discouraged from doing so. Whatever anyone else may do, we can go on chanting Hare Krishna. We can endeavor for pure devotional service. We should continue to do so. But just understand what is right and what is wrong, and don't subscribe to that which is wrong, calling it right. Which might mean, as devotees from Czech were just asking me, that we might not thickly mingle with much of what goes on in the big ISKCON world, big festivals and this and that. We might not, if we don't find that it's exactly to the point. So, Hare Krishna. Shall we finish there? They may say you shouldn't say this to newcomers, but they'll find out soon enough. We might as well tell them also. The Krishna consciousness is real, but not that everything that goes on in the name of Krishna consciousness is real. In the festival we just had at Lika, I don't think we hardly discussed such topics at all in the meeting, because it's just like everyone knows, and what's the point of discussing it all on and on and on. So we just spoke philosophy and regular Krishna conscious philosophy, had kirtans. That last kirtan, especially at the Abhishek, that was quite a kirtan, even without any famous kirtaniyas present. Householder devotee leading the kirtan. He's young householder in a small town in Czech Republic. His wife cooks and he just distributes. Now I think they both cook because the operation became bigger. Without advertising, they may have prasadam catering service, and then another devotee takes it around to the different shops and offices like this. And this way they maintain their family. They have a preaching program once a week, distribute a few books if they have a little time. Like that. Great kirtan. So please try and come next year. All of you. Not you. You should be. Well, maybe, but you should be over there. But we missed Achyutananda this year and Nitya. I know that you weren't deliberately absconding, but please do try and come next year. Hare Krishna. All right, so finish there.